Part 44. Try to find out the beautiful snake hidden in the harem. Arrested? He was arrested, but just now the slave got the letter, and the person has been locked up for a day. But he refuses to speak. Xiao Beiji's head hung very low, and although it was none of his business, he still felt ashamed. Is there no shame in it? It's just a physician. Thrown into a place like Chunyiwei, and he should have recruited the 8 generations of ancestors without anyone asking. As a result, it has been a day now, and he hasn't spoken yet. Oh, it's not right. The 8 generations of ancestors confessed happily, but what really matters is that they haven't confided a penny. Locked up in Chunyiwei for a day. And didn't speak? Xia Linxuan was thinking that this time the Royal Dark Guard's movements were still very fast, and he only ordered them last night. They had done everything quietly today. And they had been locked up for a day. Who knew that they would get such an incredible answer immediately? Yes, he didn't confess anything useful. He only said that it was all his own sin. And he was willing to confess his guilt and be punished. Xiao Beiji's head hung lower. This kind of talk is simply treating the emperor as an idiot. I really don't know what that Sun Shi thinks. Bastard, is he an idiot? Sure enough, Xia Linxuan flew out with a brush and landed on the ground, dragging out a long ink trail, and then he sneered. No one instructed him? He went to murder the queen and Qiutai. Do you think this kind of death is fun? With this ability, why didn't he come to harm me? Xiao Beiji didn't dare to say anything. And Xia Linxuan stood with a dark face for a while, then suddenly raised his head and asked, "Tomorrow is the 15th day of the first lunar month, right?" "Yes, Your Majesty. Tomorrow is the Lantern Festival." Xiao Beiji replied respectfully. I don't know why Xia Linxuan suddenly asked about this. Could it be that he wanted to watch the lights with Pu Qiutai? But isn't the most important thing now to find out the beautiful snake hidden in the harem? Okay, you tell Yi Liangfeng, just say that I will give him another day and a night. Allow him to use all kinds of means, and it is best not to kill people. But the news must not be revealed. If by tomorrow afternoon, it is still impossible to ask for a confession. And then find a way to spread the news to the harem. Yes. Xiao Beiji knew that Xia Linxuan had an idea, so he hurriedly agreed to quit. And here Xia Linxuan came to the window and looked at the courtyard outside. There was a light snow the day before, which had almost melted at this time. And only the corner of the wall was still a little white where the sun did not shine all year round. Who could it be? Murdering the queen is so bold. Once it is revealed, it will be a disaster to destroy the family. If you can't bring the most benefit to yourself, no one will take this risk, right? In this way, the murderer will only be among concubine Yan and concubine Luo, and only the 2 of them will be able to be crowned after the death of the queen. Which one exactly? If Sun Shi has been refusing to confess, it seems that he will have to gamble once. If it's really just these 2 people, it's better to say, either. I'm afraid that some people have already expected me to guess like this, so in addition to murdering the queen, they also have to frame the 2 concubines by the way, which has to be guarded against. Alas! Unexpectedly, a harem would be more difficult than the leaders and ministers to clean up seriously. Those women are also really vicious and smart, and in order to climb up, they will use all means. Xia Linxuan gritted his teeth and thought angrily, but he didn't want to think about it at all. Didn't he bother to pay attention to the bloody harem in the past and indulge it? It was at this moment that he had the idea of leaving Pu Qiutai alone and disbanding the harem. But after thinking about it again, this is really a bit unusual. How much will it make waves in the people? I am the emperor. And sending those concubines to marry other men is equivalent to putting on a green hat for myself. How can I get my face down? Anyway, let's get this poisonous woman out first. Waving his hand irritably, Xia Linxuan exhaled fiercely, Watching the sun gradually move westward, he thought about it, and said to Xiao Beiji, who turned back, "Don't be alarmed. Go to the cold palace for a walk. Mother, today is the Lantern Festival. It's a pity that you are in the cold palace, otherwise you can go to Chongqing Gate with the Emperor to watch the lanterns. There is no curfew tonight, the crowd is like weaving lights brilliantly, not to mention how lively." As the sun set, Honglian sat in the room and gossiped with Pu Qiutai, and when she saw that her master's face was not very good, she smiled and said, "Mother is still angry with the emperor?" Called the slave maid to say, he couldn't help it for a while that night, so he came over, and if he wanted to enjoy the lanterns with the concubines tonight, he would definitely not come. Before she finished speaking, she heard someone laughing outside the house. "Who said I wouldn't come? Fortunately, you are not a half-fairy. Otherwise you would not have let people smash the stall?" With the words, Xia Linxuan walked into the house with a cold air, and when he saw Pu Qiutai jumping up in surprise, he laughed and said, "What? It's just that I've been in the cold palace for a few days, and Qiutai is not used to my company. Your Majesty, there must be a limit to your nonsense. Right?" Pu Qiutai's face turned into black charcoal. "At this time, you don't say that you are accompanying the Queen Mother and concubines to watch the lanterns with the banquet. But you want to come to the cold palace. What is this like to spread out? How is it not like that? The palace is my home, I can be wherever I want, am I not free in my own home? So, what's the fun of being an emperor?" "That's it, Mother, what the emperor said is right." Honglian hurriedly played around, and then looked at Xia Linxuan with evil intentions. "Besides, it's not yet time for dinner. Maybe the emperor just came over to go through the motions, and then he will go to Sinning Palace." "No. I'm eating here." Xia Linxuan's words broke the illusion of Honglian and Pu Qiutai. Seeing that the green tendons on his lover's forehead burst out, it was obvious that he was about to enter a violent state, so he put away the smile on his face and said, "Okay, Qiutai, I have something serious to tell you. Honglian, you step back first. And send someone to the Imperial dining room to give an order to bring my Imperial dining meal over." Honglian had no choice but to withdraw. Here, Xia Linxuan didn't care about Pu Qiutai's demeanor, that his nose was not a nose, and his face was not a face. When he walked up to him, the first thing he said was a bombshell. "The medicinal materials that I ordered someone to take from you a few days ago have been found out, and there is indeed a problem." Pu Qiutai was stunned, his cold had already healed. If it wasn't for Xia Linxuan mentioning it at this time, he almost forgot about it. At that moment, I couldn't help but gasp, and asked with wide eyes, "Is there really a problem? How dare they do that? Blatant?" Xia Linxuan nodded, and then gritted his teeth and said, "Sun Shi, this bastard, is still a physician, more poisonous than a poisonous snake. Although he must have a mastermind behind the scenes, but his methods are indeed clever and ruthless. Even the queen was killed by him silently, and no one noticed. If it wasn't for the coincidence." Qingyun recommended a powerful physician from the people to enter the palace to diagnose the queen, and saw a clue, so that the queen warned me before she died, and I might have to. Even you. Losing these two words, Xia Linxuan didn't come out. As long as he thought of this possibility, his heart, which had always been cold and calm, would be swallowed up by fear, which was too uncomfortable, so Xia Linxuan subconsciously refused to think about this possibility. Pu Qiutai was also a little distracted, and it took a long time before he suddenly asked, "No. How could Sun Shi know that I would be infected with the wind chill at that time? If I don't get sick, won't they find a chance?" Xia Linxuan said in a deep voice. "Your body has always been conditioned by Lu Hongdao and Zhang Tianhai, and these two are also absolutely trustworthy people. But when you got sick, it just so happened that they weren't there. Chen Yue interrogated Sun Shi, but he confessed bitterly, only said that in the woods when roasting sheep on Chinese New Year's Eve, he bought people to sprinkle some water used by infected people, so that the wood burned and smoked. Your body is already weak. Inhaling those smokes, it is very easy to get sick, and the truth is true, so you will get sick so quickly. And you can't even wait for Lu Hongdao and Zhang Tianhai to come back. In the end, let Sun Shi pick up this opportunity. Pu Qiutai's complexion finally changed. The means of harming people in this deep palace are really incredible, and there are unimaginable traps in ordinary things. No wonder people say that there is endless bloody rain in the harem. And every time you take a step, you don't know how many bloody corpses there are under your feet. He was silent for a while, and suddenly remembered something again, and hurriedly said, "This is not right. The emperor said that there is a problem with that medicinal material. But what does this have to do with physician Sun? I remember that the medicinal herbs were brought back from the treasury of the Ministry of Internal Affairs." Xia Linxuan said hatefully. The hands and feet in the treasury of the Internal Affairs Office are naturally not clean, but your medicinal materials are ordered by Sun Shi. After that bastard left you, he took a shortcut to the medicine depot of the Internal Affairs Office, and selected all the medicinal materials on the prescription for you. And the hands and feet on the medicinal materials were also quietly used at this time. The eunuch in charge of the medicine depot of the Internal Affairs Office only thought that he wanted to please you, so he would personally select the medicinal materials. So after receiving 2 taels of silver from him, when the palace maid here went to get the medicine, he pushed the boat to give her the medicinal materials that Sun Shi had manipulated. How can things be done like this? Pu Qiutai was dumbfounded, and it took a long time before he said, "What's wrong with that medicinal herb? What methods did he use?" "His method is called vicious. The queen's previous health deteriorated, and in the end, she died, which was his means. The hands and feet of this herb are not poisonous, and even if you use it, the effect is excellent. In this way, you will naturally look at him differently. And if there is anything wrong with him in the future, you will naturally think of him. After taking the medicine a few times, the things that he secretly infiltrated into the medicine will be ambushed in your body." Speaking of this, Xia Linxuan paused, and then said in a deep voice, "If it's just like this, it's not harmful to the body, but this thing only doesn't deal with oil. Imagine whether it's a meal or a snack, where can there be no oil star? As long as you eat these, the combination of the oil and the thing in the body becomes an invisible chronic poison that kills people, and this poison is still very difficult to detect. The queen was harmed by them with this method for several years, and how many imperial physicians had diagnosed her in the middle, they were all at a loss. In the end it was the folk physician who saw a little clue, but unfortunately it was too late, and the queen was unable to return to the sky. And she left after a while. It's such a twist and turn. Pu Qiutai has always known that the people in the harem are powerful, but to this extent, he really never dreamed of it. According to Xia Linxuan, these methods are almost imperceptible, and even if the victim dies, he is afraid that he will be a fool. Wasn't that the previous queen like that? Although she knew the truth before she died, she didn't have the energy to follow up the clues at that time, and she didn't know who killed her until she died. Thinking of this, Pu Qiutai has always been indifferent, and he couldn't help but be frightened, looked up at Xia Linxuan and asked in a deep voice, "Sun Shi is just an imperial physician, what good can I do for him? There must be an instigator behind this matter, who does the emperor know?" Xia Linxuan gritted his teeth and said hatefully, "It's just that I don't know. That bastard's bones were hard." And after a day and a night of interrogation, he gritted his teeth and didn't let go. "But don't worry, I've already arranged it. When you're done eating, It's time for the show. Pu Qiutai glared at Xia Linxuan, and said in a deep voice, "It's too nonsense. Since the emperor has made arrangements, why do you still come to me to eat? Aren't you afraid of delaying big things? Are you the emperor, the determination that you have always been proud of? It's not that I'm boasting, it's my concentration. It's that Mount Tai won't change color before it collapses. It's a pity that as soon as I met Qiutai, this concentration collapsed, and I didn't know what was going on." Xia Linxuan grinned. And when he saw Pu Qiutai grinding his teeth, he smiled, took him into his arms, and muttered, "Don't blame me, you should know why I have to come here tonight. Only by holding you in my arms and proving that you are alive in front of my eyes can I rest assured. You don't know, since you arrived in the cold palace, I haven't had a night without nightmares. But luckily they acted early, otherwise those dreams would have been enough to drive me crazy." Pu Qiutai was about to struggle, but after listening to these words of true feelings, he imagined that Xia Linxuan would be awakened by nightmares every night. And he didn't know what it was like in his heart. It took a long time before he smiled bitterly. "The monarch is very gracious, Your Majesty, if you give this love to anyone in this harem. The other party will be grateful. Why should it be used on ministers? You know that the minister is no matter what. I can't repay this favor. What's the solution?" Xia Linxuan interrupted Pu Qiutai and said with a wry smile, "I don't know what to do, and I go deep. As the Son of Heaven, I can control the whole world, but only this heart cannot be controlled." "You can't control your heart?" Pu Qiutai's eyes widened, thinking to himself, what kind of nonsense is this? How can this bastard even talk about love? The hardest thing to control is the human heart. Xia Linxuan was right, staring at Pu Qiutai. "Otherwise, wouldn't my beloved concubine know? In your current situation, it is best to fall in love with me. You can fulfill your wish without sinning, but can you control it and make it fall in love with me?" Pu Qiutai was speechless. After a while, he shook his head and sighed. "I see, sure enough. The most difficult thing to control is the human heart." "Of course." Xia Linxuan gently tugged at a strand of his lover's hair and played with it between his fingers. "If everyone can control their hearts, then where is there so much disturbance in this world? Buddhism will not have the 7 sufferings: birth, old age, sickness, death, resentment, love, parting, and unwanted things." Pu Qiutai naturally knew what the 7 sufferings of Buddhism were, and because of the muttering thoughts, he suddenly stared at Xia Linxuan and said, "Is it something that you can't get the more you want? The more you want it, and when you really get it, you can abandon it?" Xia Linxuan was stunned for a moment, not knowing why his lover would shift the topic to this direction, but soon he understood what Pu Qiutai was referring to, and couldn't help laughing. "Most things in the world are like this. You can't toss and turn when you ask for it, and you don't know how to cherish it if you ask for it. It's just that there are exceptions, such as me and Qiutai. Although I can't control my heart, but I still have a good idea of how I feel about Qiutai. I can't let go in this life. If Qiutai doesn't believe me, why don't you cater to me and let you see if I will abandon you after I get you?" "Get out!" Pu Qiutai snorted coldly. "The emperor won't play tricks, he may be entangled in this life, but the minister will never fall in love with you. It's a pity that I let Qiutai see through it." Xia Linxuan spread his hands, "But it doesn't matter, as long as Qiutai is by my side. I will be satisfied, I am not greedy." "Does this bastard have the face to say he's not greedy?" Pu Qiutai looked up at the roof, his heart was full of grief and indignation. If Xia Linxuan wasn't greedy, the wolves should only eat grass and not meat. "Your Majesty, Mother, the Imperial dining room has sent dinner." Honglian's voice sounded outside the door, and Xia Linxuan hurriedly said, Then come in, and then I have something to do. Honglian agreed, and the curtain of the door was opened in a moment. And several little palace maids and little eunuchs rushed in, and lightly set the table full of rice and rice balls in the food box, and then withdrew. Okay, concubine. Come and accompany me to use some. Xia Linxuan took Pu Qiutai's hand and came to the table, but heard him say lightly, "The emperor is dining here. Isn't it deserted for the queen mother and the prince?" "It won't be deserted. I sent the prince and Qinger to Sinning Palace, with those two monkeys making trouble. How could the queen mother think of me? Come on, I will pour wine for my concubine." Ignoring Pu Qiutai's obstruction, Xia Linxuan insisted on filling the wineglass in front of him. And then poured himself a full glass, then raised his glass and said sincerely, "The beautiful scenery of the good day, but I can't spend it with Qiutai. Fortunately, the day when you return to the Yunhai Palace is not far away. Come. Let's make a toast for you to return to the Yunhai Palace as soon as possible. What's the best thing to do about this kind of thing? If possible, he would rather live in a cold palace for the rest of his life." Pu Qiutai rolled his eyes, but seeing that Xia Linxuan had already drunk the glass of wine, he remembered that he had nightmares every night, but somehow, his heart was a little soft, so those bad words were held in his stomach. And Pu Qiutai silently accompanied Xia Linxuan to drink this glass of wine.